get ready to get some mock drafts underway, man. That was a little nerve-wracking, I think, to look back on this. It'll be pretty funny to watch how many times I messed up this live stream, but nonetheless, I'm just gonna start going and we will see how we do overall here. What is going on? Except we've got one person in the house. What's going on, man? Hope you are doing well. Please let me know if you guys have any questions overall or anything I can answer for you. And let's get rolling, man. Once again, I truly apologize to anyone who was waiting. Doesn't look like really anyone was, but nonetheless, definitely apologize. I am way behind on schedule. So we're just going to roll through this like a normal mock draft, man. We should be able to, let's see, secure a pretty good player at the 11th overall spot here, and then flip back in the second round and get another pretty valuable player there at the 14th overall selection. If you guys want to see me do any of these through, a different platform other than Yahoo, let me know as well. I want to do one through the NFL site tonight because my 12-man mock draft that I have on Wednesday will be conducted through the NFL website. So maybe I can do one through Yahoo, one through ESPN, one through NFL, and then maybe like a 20-man through Sleeper, and give us a pretty good variety of mock drafts. So uh, should be pretty fun overall. If you guys see any like weird technical difficulties going on, please let me know, as well as like I said, this is my first time doing a mock draft through a live stream, so definitely excited to be here. Definitely excited to get this going as well. Let me know in the chat down there, what type of league you guys are playing in this year, as well, as I'm definitely interested to get that feedback also. So 15 seconds here. I think we're probably going to go pretty typical strategy here. Go, double RB and see how it works out for us, and then probably flip back and potentially get a receiver, but more than likely target another running back there in the third round. So we see Dalvin Cook selected first overall, pretty typical. I mean, between him and Christian McCaffrey, those are going to be your top guys off the board. There goes CMC as well. So I guess really there, I mean, the only concern would potentially Christian McCaffrey is around injury, but let's be honest, Dalvin Cook has dealt with a lot of injuries, over the years as well. So I think if you were to pick Dalvin Cook over Christian McCaffrey, you're really just, I don't know if it really solidifies the decision, but if you have more conviction in that of Dalvin Cook overall, then I'm all for it, man. I really don't have any beef with you going out and getting someone that you, believe in more than another player. So, nonetheless, we see Alvin Kamara and that of Aaron Jones off the board, followed by that of Ezekiel Elliott. So, a pretty big run, of course, in this first round at the running back position. Pretty typical to what we're used to seeing. So, nonetheless, we're going to hope that at this 11th overall selection, we're able to get, a guy like Jonathan Taylor, I wouldn't mind, but we really want to see Nick Chubb fall out, or it looks like Aaron Jones went fourth overall. That would be another guy that we'd love to see there as well. But really, Jonathan Taylor, I mean, I don't personally care if Carson Wentz is going to be healthy or not. Truly doesn't bother me. I still have pretty high conviction in this season that Jonathan Taylor is going to put out. And I think he's a good start to this roster. And through Yahoo's overall rankings, theoretically, we should be able to turn around at the 14th selection and draft a guy like Najee Harris. So I don't have any problem with that. Starting my draft with a guy like Jonathan Taylor, who might get selected here, but he did not. Stephon Diggs off the board. We saw a pretty big run at the wide receiver position between Tyreek Hill, Devonte Adams, and that of Stephon Diggs. So we will go ahead and snag Jonathan Taylor here. And like I said, with that 14th overall selection, we should have, a pretty good selection of running backs between Saquon Barkley, Austin Eckler, Antonio Gibson, and then Najee Harris floating down there as well. So to be truthfully honest, I'm fine with drafting any of those guys overall really don't have a problem with either of them, or not either of them, but any of them being my RB2 on my squad, especially with Jonathan Taylor kind of leading the way, looking to get a very heavy workload this year. So I mean, Austin Eckler is probably going to be the best in terms of PPR value, but we know that Antonio Gibson as well as Najee Harris are going to give us better rushing upside. I'm really high on Najee Harris at the moment. I mean, no knock on either Austin Eckler or Antonio Gibson, but that's really the guy that I want to go out and get here at the moment. Uh, just who I have the most conviction in overall. So we now see Austin Eckler off the board, but yeah, truthfully, I wouldn't mind having either of these guys. I don't think you're making a bad selection getting Najee Harris or Antonio Gibson, but we're going to roll with Najee Harris for the sake of this mock draft, and then we will roll right into the third round here and see who we can snag with that 35th and 38th overall selection. So who I would like to get here is obviously, you guys already know, David Montgomery or James Robinson there in the third round. I mean, it's very likely, but we're still going to be kind of lingering. It's also very likely that we're not able to get them sitting at that 35th overall selection, and with Yahoo having them ranked 31st and 32nd overall. But once again, it could definitely happen. And both of those guys, David Montgomery and James Robinson, are gone. Then we could flip around and target a guy like Gus Edwards, possibly. But I don't know, man. I don't know if I have that much conviction in going out and reaching for Gus Edwards like that. What is going on? Made for TV underscore. I'm still super excited. I got Jones, Taylor, and Robinson and my RB trio this year. I mean, yeah, man, that's a fantastic trio overall. Very similar to what we're targeting here in this 12-man mock draft with Jonathan Taylor and Najee Harris, excuse me, sitting here. So Aaron Jones, I think a little bit better value than a Jonathan Taylor, but having Jonathan Taylor as your RB2 on top of Aaron Jones is phenomenal. And then you already know how I feel about James Robinson, man, also a tremendous value there. So very, very similar to what we're trying to get going here in this mock draft that we're in right now. And I definitely think that it's possible, but it's going to be a little tough. I mean, and, you know, I would say that if David Montgomery and James Robinson are not available with this coming selection at pick 35, then it's really tough pickings, man. I mean, we could go with a receiver. There's a couple quarterbacks looming here. No quarterbacks have been selected so far in this mock draft, so we could turn around and potentially get an elite QB1. But, man, all I really want is a couple stud running backs to really get this team going. And it seems like year after year, you know, I always play around with, you know, a lot of different strategies throughout the off season, and I always come back, you know, by the time that it is to actually draft, I always come back. Sorry, I'm trying to plug in my phone here and get it charging, but I always come back to just the RB heavy method. There's really nothing else that sorry, my phone is freaking out over here, guys. Okay, we're back in business here. So it seems like the more and more mock drafts that I do every offseason, there's nothing more valuable than going RB heavy at the beginning, as the position just dries out so incredibly quickly overall. But I will say, you know, there are a lot of good value running backs, and kind of this tier from like Josh Jacobs all the way down to like Melvin Gordon the third. Did a mock draft earlier today, and where I went out, and this hasn't been posted yet. I'm going to drop it for tomorrow morning, actually. But where I went out and I got Tyreek Hill, excuse me, and Patrick Mahomes in the first and second round, respectively. And that was a 10-man mock draft, right? And then I went out and just went super RB heavy for the rest of the draft, essentially with you know, one other wide receiver sprinkled in, right? And looks like we got some phone messages popping up here. But nonetheless, I think that it's doable to go out and target a receiver and or a quarterback early on, and then turn around and get a lot of these kind of question mark guys: Gus Edwards, Miles Sanders, Josh Jacobs, Mike Davis, Damon Harris, Daryl Henderson, and then even moving into that next tier with like Kareem Hunt, right? Chase Edmonds, Raheem Mostert, Javonte Williams. I mean, you could potentially get a very valuable wide receiver or tight end and or a quarterback to start your draft and then turn around and just go super running back heavy with a lot of handcuff situations. But I think there's a little bit of a gamble overall involved with that method, which I talked about in that draft, which you guys will see tomorrow, where you're kind of just waiting for the right guys to fall to you and kind of crossing your fingers the whole draft, which could certainly work in your favor, right? But nonetheless, it's definitely it's kind of sketchy overall. So my phone is still popping things up on here. But nonetheless, we have got James Robinson available. We just missed out on David Montgomery, but I'm still really happy to go ahead and snag James Robinson here. And now, looking at the players available, we did see Patrick Mahomes selected. Let's go ahead and take a step back here. As I mean, this third round, we've seen a lot of talent off the board, right? George Kittle, Darren Waller, Keenan Allen, Allen Robinson, CeeDee Lamb, Mike Evans, and Chris Godwin at the receiver position, and a couple tight ends, right? So big run at skill position, and of course Patrick Mahomes, and then another run at the RB position here with David Montgomery, James Robinson, and Chris Carson all off the board. So I mean, really here, if, Josh Allen doesn't get selected, that's something that we could consider. Obviously, we've gone pretty RB heavy. We could go out and get Josh Jacobs here and really add another good value at the running back position, and then kind of have to go wide receiver heavy, sprinkle in a QB and tight end there as well. So those are kind of the things that we have to evaluate here, because if we go wide receiver at the moment, well, I like a lot of these guys, like the Rams wide receivers. I really like Robert Woods at the moment. Amari Cooper's here, Tyler Lockett's here, and of course DJ Moore sitting here with a very easy strength of schedule. We've got Julio down there and Adam Thielen as well. But I just think for the sake of this mock draft, let's go RB heavy. Let's pick up 4 running backs here: Jonathan Taylor, Najee Harris, James Robinson, and Josh Jacobs. And let's see how this roster turns out, because I certainly think that we could get a lot of good value at other positions. So let's go ahead and evaluate some wide receivers overall, because really when we're looking at the receivers, the more and more mock drafts I do, the deeper I realize that this position is, right? I mean, going into the 5th and 6th round here, we could very likely still end up with like a Julio Jones and a Jerry Jeudy, which would be a great combination. We could also potentially get a guy like Robbie Anderson, who's got a very, very easy strength of schedule. We've got guys like Juju Smith-Schuster and Antonio Brown sitting down here, Devonta Smith, Corey Davis, Chenault Jr. I mean, it kind of just goes on and on. I think there's a lot of value at the receiver position throughout the entire draft, where when we're looking at the running back position, obviously there is a clear cutoff, really for me, right around the area of like Javonte Williams to Melvin Gordon. I mean, you guys know that I love my guy Ronald Jones, right? I mean, I have no problem going out and targeting him later in drafts. But other than that, I mean, especially after Ronald Jones, I mean, that tier of running backs gets really ugly, in my opinion. Kenyon Drake, let me know in the chat down below how you guys feel about Kenyon Drake, because this was like earlier in my mock draft, someone who I was really targeting pretty heavily overall just because of the potential value there. But I just don't know if I see that value anymore, right? Especially with me targeting Josh Jacobs in a lot of mock drafts. So let me know, because I'm definitely interested how you guys feel about that of Kenyon Drake. So sitting here now, moving in to the end of round 5, right? And we're going to have a top pick in round 6, the second selection. Here's Sure Things team. I don't think we're interested there, but pretty even start: 2 receivers, 2 running backs. Nonetheless, right, here in the 5th round, looks like we're going to get a little bit of a run at the receiver position, and we know that we want to get at least one receiver here And then the question is, can we add a really good value at like the quarterback position, seeing Kyler Murray just go off the board? Can we add another, good value at maybe the tight end position? And those are things to evaluate, right? But I do believe that probably the best thing overall to do here is just to go ahead and snag two receivers because, although I do talk about how deep the receiver position is on a consistent basis, you still have to fill it, and it's still absolutely one of the most important overall positions in fantasy football, especially if you play in PPR scoring formats, which most people do by this point, or at least a half PPR scoring format, right? Uh, I don't think I'm ever going to go against the RB heavy method in my lifetime. Uh, Traditionally, I've gone really more three RB, one receiver. Maybe instead of getting Josh Jacobs there, I would have gone out and drafted a guy like Robert Woods. But for the sake of this specific mock draft, we're just going to keep, targeting some receivers. So Brandon Ayuk is sitting here, who I think is a tremendous value. We still have two more picks until we select. I mean, we've seen quite a few quarterbacks go, some tight ends go. Maybe there's some panic around the running back position overall. But overall, I mean, I would love to get Brandon Ayuk here. I think that would give us a pretty, good wide receiver one overall. And then we're going to kind of cross our fingers that Julio Jones falls to us. If he does not, then I'm going to turn around and, of course, get my guy in that of Jerry Jeudy. And I'm going to be really happy with the start to this roster, whether we get Julio Jones, who just got selected, so we're not getting Julio Jones, or we get Jerry Jeudy. And I do think the next selection for me outside of Jerry Jeudy would be Robbie Anderson, just based on his strength of schedule. I mean, it's ridiculous, really, when you're looking at the Carolina Panthers receivers' strength of schedule. But another guy who's got a great overall strength of schedule is that of Jerry Jeudy. So let's add him to this roster, man. And we've got my co-host Stevens, kind of sleeper, my guy, wide receiver selection, and that of Brandon Ayuk. And we've also got my kind of quote-unquote sleeper, my guy selection, and that of Jerry Jeudy. So I actually feel very good about both of these receivers. And, of course, we feel very good coming out and getting 4 solid RBs to really lead this team overall. So now we kind of have a couple holes to fill as well. We need to look to the quarterback position, of course. I mean, Dak Prescott sitting here, Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, Jalen Hurts, and Ryan Tannehill. So we still have a lot of good available players at the quarterback position. More and more that I'm doing these mock drafts and the closer that my actual drafts are getting, I'm really considering Aaron Rodgers as a QB1 for my roster coming off of that MVP year. I just think he's been slightly undervalued. He's got a very difficult schedule, not the prettiest strength of schedule overall in comparison to some other guys in that tier, but I just have one of those feelings about Aaron Rodgers. I mean, last year he was kind of a stay away player for me in terms of drafting, and all I know is someone in my co-host and myself's main league, his uncle actually had Aaron Rodgers and Devonte Adams, and week after week, really no matter who else he started, he had the chance to win just off of that pairing. And I don't know, man. I just think Aaron Rodgers is going to come out and have another really good year overall. So, made for TV underscore. I'm not a Drake fan at all this year. I could be wrong, but I'm avoiding in all leagues. Yeah, I mean, man, I really don't necessarily disagree with you. I think that offensive line in Oakland is really bad, like really bad. I think outside of Darren Waller, they're going to have a lot of trouble moving the ball down the field, right? I mean, Henry Ruggs is your wide receiver one. He could certainly break out in the sophomore year, but I'm not putting a lot of faith in it, right? And a lot of people really haven't liked how high I am on Josh Jacobs. I just think when you're looking at the stats from last year, I mean, he's a top 10 running back on fantasy last year, right? And I'm willing to take the chance on him, especially as an RB3 or RB4 overall. But when we're looking at that offense, it's looking pretty scary from a fantasy perspective right now. I mean, I really like Derek Carr as a quarterback, and I think that he's relatively underrated. But I think the bigger issue is the coaching staff and the way that offenses ran. And I really just don't understand what they did to their offensive line, in the offseason, right? I mean, they just completely destroyed it. And that makes me, a little bit worried about Josh Jacobs as well. As another guy I'm interested to get people's thoughts on. But like I said, as a RB3 or RB4 sitting on your bench, I'm certainly, willing to take the risk there when you've got over 1,000 rushing yards and over 10 rushing touchdowns on the season last year. But even if we look to a guy like Kenyon Drake, right? I mean, he put up relatively similar numbers. He had 10 rushing touchdowns last year. So it'll be interesting to see how that backfield develops throughout the season, of course. But nonetheless, yeah, I don't really disagree with you, man. I'm pretty wary of drafting that of Kenyon Drake at the moment. But could be a gamble that pays off, right? So nonetheless, we have five more selections until we pick. So Aaron Rodgers is really my top target here. We've got Robert Tonyan sitting down there at the tight end position as well. But looking at this roster that we've gone very RB heavy on, and kind of assuming that we're playing in at least a half PPR scoring format in terms of what we're mock drafting for, we would like to add another receiver of good value here. So Antonio Brown sitting down there is probably our top target. I want to point out where Corey Davis went in this mock draft in the 7th round. Man, a lot more of these mock drafts I'm doing. Corey Davis is not a sleeper anymore. He is a receiver that you're getting at a discount. You're still getting him, I would say round 6 to round 8. But if you want to draft Corey Davis and add him to your roster, do not wait until the end of your draft, because this guy, like I said, he's no longer a sleeper. This is a top target on a lot of people's draft boards, and he should not be ignored, man. I mean, it's for good reasoning too. He's a wide receiver 1. He's shown really good chemistry with that of Zach Wilson, and I don't have a problem with people going out and targeting him. I think it's a good selection overall. And there goes Aaron Rodgers and Ronald Jones, the second, two guys that we kind of were targeting in this mock draft. I hadn't mentioned Ronald Jones at all, but another good target that I've been kind of targeting overall throughout the offseason and preseason. So now we are kind of moving into that next tier of quarterbacks. I think we can still grab Ryan Tannehill here if we do hold off for one pick. So let's go ahead and add that of Antonio Brown here. There's a couple other receivers here that are available. I mean, we got Tyler Boyd, right? We've got Jamar Chase, who's kind of a stay away for me, right? We've got... let's see here. Juju sitting here, like I mentioned. And Cortland Sutton is not someone who I'd really like to pair with that of Jerry Jeudy. Even though they both have, really easy strengths of schedule overall, I'm just not high on putting too much stock into that offense at the moment. Let's see if there's any updates. Not really. So nonetheless, let's go ahead and snag that of Ryan Tannehill here. And let's just go ahead and pull up our team. I mean, overall, I'm not disappointed in this team whatsoever. I think we got a really good value at the quarterback position overall. Looking to our receivers, I'm not disappointed with Jerry Jeudy, Brandon Ayuk, and Antonio Brown, especially being that we are going RB heavy in this current mock draft, and we have got some absolute studs at the running back position overall. But nonetheless, we still need to draft a tight end and 5 more bench players. So let's see who's available overall at the wide receivers, because we are going to have to pull out some quote-unquote sleepers here. But I can tell you, man, Chenault Jr. and or DJ Chark on the Jacksonville Jaguars are kind of my top. I don't want to say sleepers, because I don't feel like they're really sleeper picks at this point. I just think that they're kind of being ignored overall, right? And then Michael Pittman on the Colts, Jacoby Myers, and Marquez Callaway. I mean, these are really my guys in this tier that I want to add to my roster. I feel like they present the best wide receiver 1 value. Chenault Jr., obviously not really a wide receiver 1, but he's shown that really good chemistry in the preseason with that of Trevor Lawrence, and he's obviously a good red zone target, if anything, for that of Trevor Lawrence. But I do expect DJ Chark in that offense to emerge as the wide receiver one. I have nothing against going out and drafting Marvin Jones as well. He's looked very good in the preseason, dealing with a little bit of a shoulder injury, but I wouldn't be too concerned about it. He's a veteran player who's probably going to manage himself pretty well in that regard, right? Outside of the receiver position, we do want to look at the tight end position pretty soon. We've got Robert Tonyan still available. I don't know if he'll be available in 14 picks. I anticipate him not being available. He is a little bit higher here up on the overall players, right? Javonte Williams, he just got selected as a running back that I really like in the 8th round, in the 9th round. Depending on how many teams are in your draft, he might be closer to the 10th or 11th round, right? Man, has he looked good in the preseason. And speaking of strength of schedule, those Denver Broncos running backs have such an easy strength of schedule overall. It would be crazy not to go out and target one of them. The amount of red zone, carries that they're going to get. Obviously we have to wait until the regular season to really see, how that plays out and how they're kind of going to split those carries. But I think between Melvin Gordon the third and Javonte Williams, either one is worth a pick where you can select them. So Marquez Callaway off the board. This is another guy, had also put in this conversation, Devonta Smith, right? Those two guys and Corey Davis, the more and more mock drafts I'm doing, the sooner those guys are going. I mean, they are essentially wide receiver ones. Some things could change come week one. I guess maybe if we see some of those respective offenses roll out a little bit differently. But overall, I don't see it changing. And I think that they're great values. But the point being is you kind of have to target those guys pretty early on if you do want them. I don't want to say too early on, but I guess the point I'm making, like I made with Corey Davis already, is they're no longer sleepers, man. These are guys on draft boards that people want to go out and snag. What is up, Rio Goaded? Would you trade Eckler and James Robinson for A.J. Brown and Zeke? Man, that is a loaded question. So let's see. Eckler and Robinson for A.J. Brown and Zeke. Man, to be completely honest with you, I wouldn't. I mean, uh, I'm not as high on Austin Eckler overall as like my co-host Steven is, right? He's going to present some tremendous PPR value. So if you are playing in full PPR, I would hold on to Austin Eckler, and I really, really cannot stress how much I like James Robinson's value overall. So I think that you're getting, you already have two fantastic running backs that I think you should keep on your roster. I think Zeke is probably a better bet overall on the year than both of those two running backs. But I just don't know if A.J. Brown really gives you a better value than that combination of Eckler and James Robinson. I would hold on to both of those running backs, but I do play very RB heavy and I do draft very RB heavy overall. So I would stick with the guys that you drafted, man. I really truly would. But let's see here. We are on the clock and we need to get. I mean, we could go ahead and snag our tight end and Robert Tonyan. Let's go ahead and do it. Chenault Jr. would have been my top target here, who did get drafted right before we drafted. But I think we can go ahead and secure our tight end one and feel pretty confident, right? And then flip back here and potentially get DJ Chark, who we just talked about recently, as I think he is a very good overall receiver to go ahead and target. I really think DJ Chark's going to emerge as the wide receiver one in that offense. Let's not forget, outside of injuries, DJ Chark has really shown phenomenal value overall. What is up, Nathan Jenke? Hope I'm pronouncing your last name correctly there. What do you think of a wide receiver duo of Godwin and Metcalf in an 8-man week? Is it a bit weak? Not at all, man. I think that's a great combination overall. Listen, man, if you're playing full PPR, Chris Godwin's going to give you tremendous PPR value. if he can stay healthy this year, he's that security blanket slot guy who has the ability to stretch the field. I mean, really, Chris Godwin can do it all, right? And if you guys have been following my mock drafts, right, you guys know how high I am on DK Metcalf. I think he is one of the best wide receiver ones that you can get at kind of a discounted price, right? So I don't think that's a weak combination at all, man. I would play both of those guys week in and week out, even in an 8-man league, especially if it's a PPR scoring format. If it's a standard scoring format, let me know. But half PPR or full PPR, I don't think you have anything to worry about. Rio goaded, but think about it. If so, I will have Aaron Jones and Zeke, and my wide receiver would be Allen Robinson and AJ Brown. So you still shouldn't do it now. Listen, man, I would trust your gut instinct. I'd be interested to see what the receivers are on your squad already. If you feel like your receivers are pretty weak overall, then yeah, sure, it's okay to go ahead and get depth. And then, yeah, I mean, the combination of Aaron Jones and Zeke would be pretty deadly overall. I would trust that combination, you know, in pretty good perspective, but it also depends on how many players, how many flex positions you have. Because if you have Aaron Jones, Austin Eckler, and James Robinson every week, to me, that's already great value, right? But if you feel more confident in going out and having Aaron Jones and Ezekiel Elliott every week, and then having, two receivers in Allen Robinson and AJ Brown, I don't think that's a bad option either. As Allen Robinson's going to get you that consistent standpoint of PPR value week in and week out, and him being a very underrated player, right? And then AJ Brown kind of gives you the ability to have that, explosive play, those big point weeks as well. So what I always say, man, is trust your gut. If you think that's the best move for your team, I could certainly argue either way, and I can certainly see why you think that's a better overall decision. So I hate to give you kind of an answer that isn't a for sure thing, but I think you'll end up making a good decision for your squad either way. And also let me know, Rio Goated, how many flex spots you have, and how many, if it's an 8, 10, or 12-man league, and all of that as well. What's up, Nathan? It's full PPR. Got Metcalf round 3, pick 21, and got Godwin in round 5. Yeah. Dude, I think you got two incredible receivers, and I'm assuming if you got Metcalf in round 3 and Godwin in round 5, then you probably have some pretty good running backs, tight ends, or quarterbacks on there as well. So, yeah, just to solidify that answer, man, I really wouldn't be upset about starting Chris Godwin and DK Metcalf, especially if you got a couple good running backs sprinkled in there. I would really, really be happy with both of those guys. I think you made some great decisions there. So looking at this roster, I did notice that Mike Goseki already has been selected, right? So, there's really no running backs left here whatsoever that we're going to be happy with. Really no one at all that I would even consider drafting outside of Naheem Hines. So moving to the receiver position, let's take a chance on Will Fuller here, as the wide receivers on this team still look relatively thin overall. And we, at least know that we get that wide receiver one potential in Will Fuller. And with Michael Pittman and Jacoby Myers sitting here, we know that we can turn around and get, a pretty solid wide receiver one as well. So it's really your gamble here between that of Michael Pittman and Jacoby Myers. I feel like they're the best available players at the position, but I'm going to go ahead and add Jacoby Myers. I like that selection a lot, especially with Mac Jones being named the starter. I think that overall the Patriots are going to be a lot more pass heavy overall. So I think Jacoby Myers is a very sneaky value. So here we've got 2, 4, and 5 bench players. So with Ryan Tannehill kind of dealing with a little bit of COVID scare and some things going on there, I don't have a problem going out and targeting another quarterback here, and then the other option is potentially getting another tight end like a Johnny Smith or a Robert Gronkowski hiding down there and kind of add a little bit of depth either at the quarterback or tight end position, and that should finish out this current mock draft for us. So let me get back to the live chat here. Nathan says my running backs are Zeke, Saquon, and CEH, but I'm just worried about Saquon at the start of the year, so I'll probably start DJ Moore in the flex. I think that's a good plan, man. I think the fact that you've got Zeke and CEH as well as Saquon, I mean, a little bit of injuries, of course, probably scaring you at the moment, but I think nonetheless, you've got three very, very valuable running backs on your squad. And when they are healthy, I think your team has the potential to absolutely tear it up. And I would definitely hold on to DJ Moore as he has a very, very easy strength of schedule overall. So good work on putting that roster together, man. And I wouldn't worry about it too much. And it's okay to sit Saquon until he is healthy. And I think when he is healthy, he's really going to help your squad out. But for now, I would roll with Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Zeke every week. And then I think you've got some really good receivers. I would definitely start DJ Moore with Metcalf and Godwin. Rio goated. I was going to put Chenault as my flex, so my team would be Lamar Jackson, Aaron Jones, Zeke, Allen Robinson, A.J. Brown, T.J. Hawkinson, and flex would be Chenault Jr. Yeah, man, I think for week one, that's a great lineup overall. I mean, your quarterback week in and week out is going to be eating, of course, and that of Lamar Jackson. Overall, Aaron Jones and Zeke is a pretty lethal combination. I don't know if you're going to get much better than that, man. Good work on being able to snag both of those guys pretty early on in your draft. I know I talked to you a little bit in the comments today, but I really do like Allen Robinson. And you're talking about if you did the trade. I'm sorry. But overall, man, if you do, yeah, I think your roster is going to be solid either way, right? Whether you do the trade or not, I think you're going to be okay. But like I said, man, if you have more conviction in going out and making that trade, then I'm completely cool with it, man. I think that's really the most important thing is going with your gut instinct with what you think is best for your roster and just don't overthink it, man. I mean, that's really what it boils down to. I think you did a good, job drafting your core roster, and I think it's going to work out either way. I think you've got a lot of good options, but I would definitely start Chenault Jr. I think he's going to come out and have a really good week one. I really, really think that chemistry we saw in the preseason between him and Trevor Lawrence is going to pay off. So sitting here, like I said, in this current mock draft, we have, one more roster spot to fill, and I do think that the best thing to do is to add another quarterback. So I'm going to roll with my guy Tua time because you guys know that I love Tua. That's my sleeper pick of the year. But I mean, there's a couple other guys sitting here, and Jameis Winston is probably the next quarterback I would take a shot on. In my quarterback ratings, I actually have Teddy Bridgewater a little bit higher based on his strength of schedule. But I would take a shot on Jameis Winston right now. I think that New Orleans Saints offense is going to come out and just let him rip the ball. And I think a lot of people are going to regret passing on Jameis Winston, even if the last time we saw him as a full-time starter, he threw for infamously, over 30 interceptions. But I think it's going to be a really pass-heavy team overall. So let's go ahead and snag a defense. We will roll with the New England Patriots as I think they're going to come out and be, a little bit more reformed after this offseason and not dealing with COVID and everything that really hurt their team last year. So we know that a kicker will fall to us here, and we don't really care. I don't want to make you guys wait for that. But let's go ahead and take a look at this team as we ended up with Ryan Tannehill and Tua at the quarterback position. I mean, I'm not going to lie. Going into this mock draft, I was a little off my game, just trying to get this live stream set up properly. Like I mentioned, it's my first time doing it, so a little bit off my game, but I still think we ended up with a pretty good roster, but I do want to throw that out there. Nonetheless, we see Jonathan Taylor at the running back position with Najee Harris, James Robinson, and Josh Jacobs. So kind of what happened here is we went RB heavy pretty early on, and it's interesting because we didn't end up drafting any other running backs, but I truly don't feel like we needed to I really think with these 4 guys, we'd be okay. And then at the receiver position, going wide receiver light at the beginning of this draft and ending up with Brandon Ayuk and Jerry Jeudy, while I'm very happy with those 2 guys, it still felt like what we needed to do for the rest of the draft was fill the wide receiver position. So we went out and we got Antonio Brown, DJ Chark, Will Fuller, and Jacoby Myers, which just kind of helps me feel better going into my 12-man draft on Wednesday, knowing that in the back half of the draft, just look at the value at the receiver position. I mean, these guys aren't, Stephon Diggs or Devonte Adams or Robert Woods or Mike Evans or anything, but these guys are going to still give you a lot of good value overall at the position. You don't have to pay such a high price for them, right? So I feel very good with those guys. We could have added another tight end at the end of this draft instead of Tua, but I feel pretty confident overall in Robert Tonyan, which most of you guys know that I do. So I feel good about this roster overall, and I kind of like that I went into it a little frantic and everything because I don't know, man. Sometimes that's what happens on actual draft day. So nonetheless, let's move on to another. Let's move on to another mock draft here. I just want to make sure I have the right site in there. So let's move on to ESPN and let's see if we can't get into a 10-man PPR mock draft. I will say on ESPN, it is hard to just jump into a mock draft that only has one spot. These mock drafts get filled very, very quickly. So there's my email. You guys can send me an email if you want. You can also email us at thecatch1818@gmail.com if you guys ever want to. But there's my personal email if you guys want to send me something. So nonetheless, we will go ahead and try and log in to ESPN and get another mock draft going. I'm going to get a sip of water here. Rio goated. One more trade. Would you trade Julio Jones and James Robinson for Zeke? Okay, so we've got, oh man, no one's in this. Let me try and hop into, maybe we won't end up doing a 10-man. Oh yeah, we got plenty of 10-mans. Real good, I'll come right back to that. I just want to try and get in a mock draft. Okay, I think we're in. That's my last name, in case you guys are wondering as well. My name's John Dawson, so we'll change my nickname to The Catch. Let's change our team logo. I don't know if any of you guys are Star Wars or Avengers fans or anything, but I'm a big Marvel fan. Let's roll with that of Thanos for our logo, and let's get going. Let me know in the live chat if you guys are Marvel fans or not. All right, so let's continue to the draft waiting room. So let's see, Rio Gooded. Let me collect my thoughts here. I want to make sure if you also have Julio on your squad, but you already have Allen Robinson. Man. I think you're giving up pretty good value for Zeke, right? I would try and get another wide receiver out of that trade as well. Just so you're not giving up too much, right? But if you're going to get another receiver who presents some pretty good wide receiver 1 value, or at least like a strong wide receiver 2 value like Julio does, then yeah, I'm good with that trade. But I would try, if you have any options at the receiver position, I would try and get a receiver out of that trade as well. And we will get ready to go in about 2 minutes and 20 seconds here. All right. No problem, Rio. Anytime, man. So I will try and get this rolling. And all right, let's kind of home back in here. So with the second overall selection, we are in a 10-man mock draft. So with that second overall pick, man, we're obviously going to get a very, very valuable player overall. I'd hate when we should just always have 2020 stats. I definitely prefer to see like stats or points from the previous year as opposed to projected points, because for me, projected points really don't mean anything. But that's okay, right? So, nonetheless, with that second overall pick, I mean, if you're asking me, man, as much as I like Dalvin Cook, I just really have a hard time at the moment passing on Alvin Kamara, right? And you guys know, if you watch mine and Stevens, my co-host, running back ranking videos, that I have Derrick Henry super high. Uh, and I love Derrick Henry. I mean, I literally have him ranked second overall. And part of that has to do more with the fact that I just really, really like Derrick Henry. So I don't know. I think at the end of the day, whether you were to roll with Dalvin Cook, let's say someone passed on Christian McCaffrey with the first overall pick, I don't think I could pass up Christian McCaffrey. I still have him ranked number one overall, even coming off of that injury, right? But nonetheless, I think if you have the second overall pick, if you have the third, fourth, or fifth overall pick, right, you are going to get a tremendous value at the running back position. And I really don't think you can go wrong here. So to me, I don't like picking at the beginning of the draft, although you end up with one of the best running backs, right? Let's say you get pick 9 or pick 10, for example, in a 10-man league. Uh, yeah, we've got some volume. So I am on the clock. We're going to roll with Alvin Kamara, and then I'm going to try and figure out how to turn off this sound. Yeah, nonetheless, sorry guys. But if you were to pick at pick 9 or pick 10, right? Just think about the combination you can get overall of like an Aaron Jones and a Nick Chubb, right? An Antonio Gibson and an Aaron Jones, Nick Chubb and Najee Harris, right? I would just much rather start my draft in that fashion as opposed to going out and getting Kamara or Dalvin Cook, first, second, or third overall, Kamara in that mix as well, right? And then having to turn around and wait till the end of the second round to make my next selection when those running backs really dry up very quickly overall. So nonetheless, I mean, it is what it is, and I think you get a very good value at the beginning of the draft, so you can't really complain. But just the way that I draft and the guys that I'm targeting, it kind of behooves me if I do get to draft at the end of the first round as opposed to the beginning. So, but it is what it is, and uh, I don't know about you guys in your personal leagues, but for myself, I never know what spot I'm picking at until the draft actually starts, or the pre-draft, so to speak, when it lets you into the draft room. I think for most of my leagues, it allows us to do that about 30 minutes before the draft. So there's really no way I can plan until 30 minutes before the draft. So speaking of which, I am driving home from the beach tomorrow. If you guys are new here, this is not my normal setup whatsoever. I'm at the beach with my wife and my mother-in-law, but nonetheless, gonna have to kind of get home in good fashion tomorrow because my 20-man draft, which I should have scheduled for a live draft, and should be able to roll out a little bit smoother than I did tonight. Now that I got a lot of those technical errors out of the way, should be drafting right around 5 p.m. for that. So hopefully I can hop on a little bit sooner, although we do have about a 6-hour drive, but we're leaving pretty early, so it should all work out. But nonetheless, hopefully I can get on. I can get my thoughts together before that draft and before live streaming it, but definitely tune in tomorrow night as well, as that 20-man draft's going to be a lot of fun overall. So this has been a pretty interesting mock draft that we're in. Let's hone back in here, right? So Derrick Henry was the third selection taken before Dalvin Cook, and I don't dislike that pick whatsoever. And a lot of people are, so down on Derrick Henry in the sense that he could potentially be injured with that workload that he's getting year in and year out. So they would rather pick Christian McCaffrey or Dalvin Cook ahead of him. And Christian McCaffrey was hurt last year, and Dalvin Cook, to some degree, is hurt almost every single year. So for myself, I don't really agree with that argument. But in other words, I have just as much conviction in Derrick Henry as I do some of those other guys, CMC, Dalvin Cook, and Alvin Kamara, right? So, but nonetheless, we saw Jonathan Taylor taken fifth overall, followed by Aaron Jones, Devonte Adams, Ezekiel Elliott, then Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill, Stephon Diggs, and then Saquon Barkley. So we have a pretty good position here to go out and get some other value. And we now see Najee Harris off the board. But, I mean, technically speaking, we could see some pretty good running backs fall to us at pick 19 here as D-Hop is off the board as well. And we'll just kind of have to sit back and anticipate as we now see Austin Eckler, followed by Nick Chubb. I mean, what a tremendous value getting Nick Chubb 16th overall. That's just absolutely insane to me, man. Our subscriber, I should say, made for TV underscore, who was in this chat earlier, has talked about this a lot in the comments section, talking about ESPN's rankings, right? And how they allow you to go out, especially at the end of the first round, and get two incredible running backs like Aaron Jones, and pair him with that of Nick Chubb, right? Which is just absolutely crazy. I mean, I don't really know. I think ESPN's rankings, I guess, are a little bit more PPR centralized, right? As we see Patty Mahomes off the board, where they're kind of favoring wide receivers over the running back position, which is okay. And they also have some guys at different positions, like Travis Kelce, the tight end position, pretty high up. But nonetheless, let's hone in here. In a 10-man draft, right, I feel a little bit better going RB, RB, wide receiver, or RB, wide receiver, RB. And DK Metcalf and Calvin Ridley and Justin Jefferson all sitting here present some really great value, but I'm going to select Joe Mixon because I don't want him to get taken off the board. And I still think even with our guy Cortez getting two selections in a row right here, we're going to be able to turn around and still get at least a DK Metcalf or a Justin Jefferson, right? So I think, in my humble opinion, they present pretty similar value to that of Calvin Ridley. So I would rather go out and get my guy in Joe Mixon and solidify that roster spot, and then just hold off for a second as we see Cortez take that of Darren Waller. So we definitely know at this point that we can still get one of those top receivers, right? If we wanted to stay away from the receiver position, then we could hop on here and get either David Montgomery or James Robinson as well, which feels very, very, very tempting at the moment. But for the sake of this mock draft, let's not pass on the talent of of Calvin Ridley, as Clyde Edwards-Helaire was the other running back or other player taken before we drafted. But do I feel like David Montgomery or James Robinson could fall here to us in the fourth round? Very, very unlikely, but I suppose it's possible. But yeah, very unlikely, right? And yeah, I wouldn't have minded whatsoever starting, this roster with three running backs and going out and getting David Montgomery there or James Robinson. I really think you're flipping a coin between those two. But nonetheless, I'm happy with going out and solidifying a receiver. But I will say at this point, we will stay away from the receiver position for quite some time, as we know there are some guys in later rounds that we want to target who still present very good overall talent. So nonetheless, let's home back in here and let's look at the quarterback position. Patrick Mahomes is the only quarterback off the board at this point in time. Let's go ahead and check the tight end position overall. I mean, still kind of dealing with, we saw George Kittle selected right after we picked Calvin Ridley. So we still kind of have the end of that top tier, right? Or kind of that second tier of tight ends and Mark Andrews, TJ Hawkinson, Kyle Pitts. And then, but I really like Logan Thomas, Robert Tonyan, and Mike Goseki, as well as Tyler Higbee. So I see no reason to go out and target any tight ends at the moment. David Montgomery and James Robinson are still sitting here, but in my humble opinion, there's no way that they're going to last. They are the top two players available. And from my viewpoint at the moment, the best thing to do would be to go out and target a running back like Josh Jacobs or Miles Sanders, and then go and turn around and get a really valuable quarterback like a Kyler Murray. If he is available, and then just know that we have some really good wide receivers floating around here as well. Probably my top guys here would be Mike Evans and or Chris Godwin. We just saw both of the Rams receivers taken off the board, and that of Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp. Josh Allen at the quarterback position has been taken in a large run on the right side of the screen at the wide receiver position, all taken right here. Someone went out and took Josh Gordon, which is kind of humorous, but hopefully it doesn't piss off so many people that they just leave this mock draft, and then we're just dealing with auto drafters. But nonetheless, I mean, I haven't heard anything on Josh Jacobs, or excuse me, Josh Gordon, that is, in quite some time. So I don't think he's currently going to be on a roster. But hey, I could be wrong. Maybe they know something. I don't know. But nonetheless, sitting here with David Montgomery and James Robinson, and our selection coming up in 4 more picks, we have somewhat of an opportunity to potentially have one of those running backs fall to us, as there's a lot of talent at the receiver position, there's a lot of talent at the quarterback position, and we have that next tier of tight ends still floating around. So there goes James Robinson. That's one of them. Very, very, very likely that David Montgomery goes here, but there is a slight chance. So we will go ahead and anticipate what happens. While we're anticipating, go ahead and smash that like button on this live stream, as it really does help out the channel, and will kind of potentially show this live stream to other viewers on YouTube who haven't got a chance to have that in their algorithm yet. So if you guys are in here and still listening, I definitely appreciate if you go ahead and hit the like button. But nonetheless, I'm just sitting here crossing my fingers, hoping that David Montgomery falls to us, as we only have one more selection here. We saw Mike Evans, like I said, a lot of good receivers, and there goes Amari Cooper. So you guys already know what our pick is: David Montgomery all freaking day. And now what we would love to turn around and do here is snag Kyler Murray. I think that would be a tremendous value here. The other option would be to go ahead and pick up Josh Jacobs and add that RB value, but I would say adding Kyler Murray with already having Joe Mixon, Alvin Kamara, and David Montgomery on this team would just give us a very good overall core roster. So let's go ahead and do that. And I mean, we have a great wide receiver 1. We have potentially someone who I think could be QB1 on the year, and that of Kyler Murray on this roster. And we have 3 running backs that we're super, super happy with overall. So definitely going to be a good start to this draft. I can already feel it. And we are going to be able to target some really good receivers here in some of the later rounds. So go ahead and let me know in the live chat who you guys think, if you have already drafted, was your best draft pick, and then go ahead and let me know who you think was your worst draft pick. That's something I'm interested to get some feedback on, and give you guys some evaluations from my humble opinion. Excuse me. And if you haven't drafted, let me know who are some guys that you're kind of leery on overall. All right, Nathan is asking, what do you think of Russell Wilson? So if you want a little bit of a deeper dive on this, do check out our quarterback rankings, mine and Steven's, my co-host Steven's. We did our quarterback rankings, and we kind of broke down where we stand with Russell Wilson. I am a tremendously big fan of Russell Wilson overall as a player. I think the biggest fear at the moment with Russell Wilson is his strength of schedule, right? Like Fantasy Pros has him ranked as the 32nd most difficult strength of schedule from the quarterback position. And it's not a good year for Russell Wilson. But with that being said, man, if there's any quarterback who can have the most difficult strength of schedule and still come out and play very well, it's going to be that of Russell Wilson, in my opinion. So we saw what he did last year. I mean, come on, man. He still threw 40 touchdowns last year and rushed for over 500 yards and threw for over 4,200 passing yards. And don't forget, right, he was QB1 for like the first half of the season. So I think the big part of the concern for Russell Wilson, right, is he's going to play the LA Rams and the 49ers twice throughout the season, which already makes the strength of schedule very difficult. And let me see if I can pull up the rest of his schedule here or not, because I don't know it off the top of my head, right? Let's see. Yeah, he opened the season with 6 top 7 fantasy weeks and 8 games before managing 0 after week 8. So we saw him on a tremendous pace last year, and then he just completely fell off. And if I'm not mistaken, yeah, this is last year. So I don't know if I can pull up at the moment his current schedule, but we could certainly try and let's see if we can't get it on the screen here. So Seattle Seahawks schedule, and I just want to make sure I don't miss any selections here. I don't think we will. Yeah, I mean, you already look at it, man. They're coming out and playing the Colts, which we should not be sleeping on whatsoever. That Colts defense is for real. We've got the Titans who are going to allow a lot of passing yards overall. I'm just trying to make sure I don't miss this pick. Let's take a pause from Russell Wilson. As Nathan also let us know, his worst pick was definitely Zeke at pick 5 over Derrick Henry. I mean, man, you know how high I am on Derrick Henry overall, so I don't want to say that I disagree with you, right? But nonetheless, man, I think that Zeke's going to give you some really, really good value week in and week out. I wouldn't beat yourself up too much about that selection, and I think that Ezekiel Elliott is in a position to really solidify himself in kind of a breakout year, so to speak. Although when you really look at his stats, he hasn't really had any down years. I mean, last year, opposing defenses just knew they could stack the box against him overall, right? So I really wouldn't beat yourself up. I think that Zeke's going to have a fantastic year. And just to give you some, better comfort, just think about how good the Dallas Cowboys were at the beginning of the season last year before Dak went down with his injury. I think we're going to see the Cowboys come out in similar fashion in less than a week, man. I mean, Thursday night football, game 1 is right around the corner. And don't get me wrong, that Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense that they're facing is for real. But overall, I think that they're really going to have a very good offensive season. So, we see Mark Andrews taken there. Now we have one more selection. Brandon Ayuk is a guy that I'm absolutely targeting here, and we are going to go back and look at that Seattle Seahawks schedule and just kind of evaluate it from a fantasy perspective, right? But Brandon Ayuk and Javonte Williams, really my top guys here, as well as Jerry Jeudy. I won't be surprised if Brandon Ayuk gets selected here, and we probably need more help at the receiver position than we do at the running back position, but we do know that in those later rounds, we can get some help at the receiver position, and we probably can't at the running back position, right? So let's take Brandon Ayuk here and kind of see if Javonte Williams stays available, because truthfully, I don't know how many more running backs are going to be available in this draft, as we already see guys like Myles Gaskin, Mike Davis, Josh Jacobs, Gus Edwards, Sony Michel, all off of the board. So I don't know how many people or how many players are going to last, but nonetheless, I wouldn't mind adding another receiver to this squad, and that of Jerry Jeudy. And I wouldn't mind adding not just Javonte Williams, but we see Daryl Henderson kind of hanging down there too. Someone who, if you're asking me, I really still see Daryl Henderson as a kind of a top running back RB1 type value. So I think nonetheless, we're going to end up with a very valuable player here. And I think this is like the second draft that I've passed on Jerry Jeudy, which really bothers me, man, because you guys know I love Jerry Jeudy, but I really like that of Brandon Ayuk as well. So nonetheless, like I said, Javonte Williams, a good pick here. Daryl Henderson's a good pick here. I think you're kind of looking at two handcuff situations, so to speak. And then Jerry Jeudy sitting down there as well, another good pick overall. Let's roll with Javonte Williams for the sake of this mock draft. And if you have any doubts in Javonte Williams, man, A, go look at that strength of schedule, right? And B, go look at what this guy did in the preseason. This guy is a freak athlete. I mean, he might be the fastest running back I have watched in some time. So let's revert back to Nathan's question about Russell Wilson and look at this strength of schedule. So week 1 is a tough matchup against the Colts, right? And then we've got the Tennessee Titans, followed by the Minnesota Vikings, which we should not be sleeping on their defense. Then the Niners, the Rams, and the Steelers. So 4 very tough matchups, right? And then the Saints, a pretty good matchup, but not the best, kind of mid-tier, right? Jaguars, very, very easy matchup. Packers, I wouldn't sleep on that defense either. I would say they're kind of mid-tier, but still pretty good. Then you've got the Cardinals, who have kind of revamped themselves, but I do feel like that's more of a shootout opportunity between those two offenses. And you've got the Washington football team and the Niners again. So a tough stretch here after the Jaguars, right? And you get the Texans. I mean, don't get me wrong. If you got Russell Wilson on your team, you're starting him against the Jags and the Texans, right? And then you end the season with the Rams and the Bears, who I mean, anytime we're playing the Rams, you're probably going to want to stream someone, right? And then, I mean, the Bears, I would say kind of mid-tier defense, but still a pretty respectable defense, followed by the Lions, another week where you're absolutely starting Russell Wilson and then finishing out with the Cardinals. So, like I said, the Cardinals kind of a revamped defense, but that gives you guys a good kind of overall perspective of how tough the Seahawks have it from a defensive or from an offensive standpoint facing different defenses this year, right? And that goes for other guys like Chris Carson, right? It goes for DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. It goes for, maybe a Gerald Everett if you're looking at the tight end position. Some very, very overall difficult matchups, excuse me, coming up for the Seattle Seahawks. So I don't know, man. Just be wary of the Seahawks overall. But like I said, if there's any quarterback who can come out and perform under the circumstances, it's definitely going to be Russell Wilson, in my humble opinion. So, nonetheless, let's go ahead and hone back in. And like I said, man, I truly would appreciate if you guys go ahead and smash that like button, as it kind of helps this live stream get spread around the YouTube algorithm a little bit. And keep up this conversation in the live chat. This has been a blast, man. Like I said, let me know if you guys have already drafted. What was your worst draft pick in your opinion? What was your best draft pick in your opinion? And if you haven't drafted yet, let me know who are a player or two that you want to draft, but you're kind of wary of overall, and maybe we can get some more clarity going as well. And feel free to have some conversations amongst yourselves in the live chat as well. So honing into the 79th overall pick here, we would absolutely love to grab Daryl Henderson here, as we consider taking him in round 7, but it's very likely that he does get taken off the board here. We have a lot of good receivers available here. Shenault Jr. and Devonta Smith looking like the top guys I would target outside of Corey Davis. So we see Justin Herbert and Russell Wilson, so we're getting a little bit of a cushion at the quarterback position, being that we took Kyler Murray very, very early in this mock draft. So I've got a good feeling that we can get Daryl Henderson here. Then we can turn around and draft either Shenault Jr., Devonta Smith, or Corey Davis. I would say out of those guys, as much as I like Shenault Jr. and Devonta Smith, I would say Corey Davis would be my top target out of those guys. So, nonetheless, man, oh man, there goes Daryl Henderson. D10Ds will not be on this team, as my co-host Steven and I have named him in this offseason / preseason. So Raheem Mostert sitting here, as well as Trey Sermon, so we could take a piece of that 49ers offense. I know, made for TV _ if you're listening or watching, man, you're going to be really mad if I don't take one of those guys. I feel like I need to give you just a shout out and select one of them. But nonetheless, since we did see Daryl Henderson get selected, let's solidify the wide receiver position with a guy that we know we really want, in that of Corey Davis. Give some support to the receivers on this team, and that of Brandon Ayuk and Calvin Ridley, and then we'll just keep moving along. I think we're still going to get a very good value. We could kind of reach for Ronald Jones the second here, or we could go out and get another receiver of really good value, whether it be Shenault Jr. or Devonta Smith, as Michael Gallup and Deebo Samuel are taken off the board. Let's double check the tight end position. I mean, still a lot of good value there. Let's check out the quarterbacks because why not? I mean, Brady and Jalen Hurts sitting here would present some good depth and some good value overall. I mean, I'm kind of tempted to take really tempted to take a quarterback actually, but let's add Devonta Smith and get a true wide receiver one. Give us some more depth at the position. I wouldn't have had any beef with going out and taking like a Tom Brady or Jalen Hurts there. Really like Chenault Jr. at this point in the draft as well. Wouldn't have hurt to maybe reach for a tight end that we're really confident in, but I think nonetheless, looking at the two receivers on this squad, and actually looking at our roster and seeing that we have three wide receivers with the same bye week, that was probably a really good selection over there overall to get Chenault Jr. So, or excuse me, not Chenault Jr., Devonta Smith, but nonetheless, Chenault Jr. would have been a good pick too, being that his bye week is not week 6. So, with all that being said, man, I have talked about this in prior mock drafts as well, right? I don't personally mind if I have a lot of players on the same bye week like I do in this current mock draft, having Kamara, Mixon, Ridley, Ayuk, and Corey Davis all on the same squad. Because I just want to draft the best available talent. And if that hurts me in week 6, then it hurts me in week 6. But remember, we are playing for fantasy playoffs and fantasy championships. And I really don't mind if I have to forfeit a loss in week 6 if I make it to the playoffs and I make it to the championship. So, nonetheless, sitting here with pick 99 coming up, the most valuable position on the board is definitely the wide receiver position, as Mike Williams and Antonio Brown are sitting there staring me down. Jalen Waddle's here as well. Let's go ahead as this selection is coming up in 4 more picks and just kind of see who's available. We've still got a lot of good depth at the receiver position with Marquez Callaway hanging out down there, Michael Pittman, and Jacoby Myers, right? So looking at the running back position, it might make sense to go ahead and snag our guy, Ronald Jones, or potentially go ahead and get a tight end that we're really confident in, like Robert Tonyan. And then really after that, we can load up at the receiver position. As much as I like Mike Williams, I feel like a lot of these receivers give us similar value overall. So let's add Mike Goseki for the sake of this mock draft, since we took Robert Tonyan in the last mock draft. We'll add Goseki here, then we'll turn around. We'll kind of take a reach here for that of Ronald Jones, and then which I don't have a problem with. You guys know that I want a lot of running backs on this squad. And then we'll look to get 2 more receivers and then a late round quarterback or tight end to kind of finish out this current mock draft. And then I think I'm going to go ahead and do an 8-man mock draft and then finish out the night. Unfortunately, I got started a little bit later than I'd like to with all those technical issues, but nonetheless, we'll do one more mock draft after this. If you guys do have any questions, please let me know in the live chat while you guys are hitting that like button. Like I said, that truly helps get this live stream out to some other audiences as well. And nonetheless, we'll keep on keeping on, man. So looking at who's available here, man, I really like Naheem Hines from a PPR standpoint. I think he gives us tremendous value at that position, right? From a PPR standpoint, of course, right? Mike Williams and Jalen Waddle sitting up there. I mean, I had a hard time passing on Mike Williams, right? I wonder if they have any player updates here or anything going on with Mike Williams. Let's see. Dealing with a hip injury. It does seem like Mike Williams is one of those guys who has a lot of injuries, from time to time, but nonetheless, don't really have a problem going out and getting him where you can draft him. I mean, I've talked about Mike Williams a lot on this channel in the offseason / preseason, and I just have a lot of overall faith in that offense as a whole. So nonetheless, man, I think Mike Williams is a great value there. Jalen Waddle is definitely an interesting overall value also. and I think that he definitely has an opportunity to emerge, maybe not as a wide receiver 1, but a wide receiver 2 or 3 that gives you very, very close value to, wide receiver 1 value, kind of like how, what we've seen play out with the Jacksonville Jaguars wide receivers, where there's 3 guys there that definitely all present that value close to wide receiver 1, and someone is going to emerge, right? So, nonetheless, coming here to, we've got pick 119. If Robert Tonyan's sitting here, then I'm taking him. I don't have any problem with adding him to this roster and giving us some good depth at the tight end position. Looking at who's available from a wide receiver standpoint, we've got Michael Pittman and Jacoby Myers sitting there. If I'm not mistaken, we should still, or no, Marquez Callaway did get selected, so he is not an option for us anymore. I mean, he is really a player that if you want on your roster, similar to Corey Davis, right? You got to go out and target him early, man. I mean, he is really showing that true wide receiver 1 type value. And all I got to say is if you want him on your squad, you better go out and target him. So J.D. McKissic taken off the board, someone I view in very, very similar fashion to that of Naheem Hines, right? And I like J.D. McKissic a lot, and I think that him and Antonio Gibson are going to play off of one another. And yeah, I think J.D. McKissic's a very, very good late round value, especially in full PPR league. So we've got 2 more picks until we select. I think we're going to end up with some really good value here. Whether we go out and get 2 wide receivers like Michael Pittman and Jacoby Myers, or if we go ahead and take Robert Tonyan and then a receiver like one of those 2 guys, Tyrone Williams, the other guy I'd kind of consider at this point in this draft, right? And then the other option would be to go ahead and snag maybe another quarterback like Ryan Tannehill or Matthew Stafford. But I think that overall it's going to be better to go tight end receiver or double receiver here and then select a quarterback at the end of the draft. So we do see Robert Tonyan taken off the board and Naheem Hines, who I think are 2 really good values overall. So let's go ahead and snag Jacoby Myers here, and then we will just kind of sit back and see if we want to get Michael Pittman here. Trey Sermon just went off the board. I think that would have been a pretty good value at this point in the draft as well. And there goes Michael Pittman, right? So a couple options that we could go with here. We could go with Tyrone Williams, right? We could go with Devonte Parker, would be a pretty interesting selection. But overall, I'm going to kind of revert away from what I just said. I'm going to actually roll with Ryan Tannehill and give us that really good value at the quarterback position, and then we can revert back to either drafting a receiver or a tight end with that final selection, as I do feel pretty confident in the receivers on this squad, especially with Calvin Ridley and Brandon Ayuk kind of leading the charge, so to speak. So we will go ahead and see what wide receiver falls to us, and if none of these guys that we're confident fall to us, then we will go ahead and snag a tight end as well. And then we will probably not go through the process of waiting for a defense and kicker, although in ESPN mock drafts, it seems like you can get a very good defense overall, so maybe worth anticipation, but I think you guys would rather see me hop into an 8-man mock draft as opposed to waiting around and watching me draft a kicker or not drafting a defense / kicker, right? So anyways, we will keep on anticipating this coming selection. And really, I mean, my top guys at this moment would be Tyrone Williams. Let's go ahead and see what Yahoo's saying about who should be the wide receiver 1 in that Detroit Lions offense. Let's see. Yeah, I forgot he missed all of last year, but when he, 2015, yeah, man, he's just really played. He's one of those really interesting players who has kind of floated around on different teams, right? And remember what this guy did with the Chargers, and don't forget about it, because he certainly has the talent to play like a wide receiver 1. So nonetheless, it looks like he's been taken since we started talking about him. So looking at the available players, right, Darnell Mooney is definitely kind of a good sleeper value here. I'm very tempted to take Ramondre Stevenson with this final selection. Someone who's really been creeping up on my personal draft board. Uh, Giovanni Bernard looks like he's kind of shot up in the draft rankings. I don't remember seeing him so high on ESPN, but that's definitely interesting as I don't know. I think Leonard Fournette and Ronald Jones will see the bulk of those carries, but don't be surprised if Bruce Arians gets that of Giovanni Bernard, the veteran, involved there, right? So, nonetheless, I think that Ramondre Stevenson or a tight end is actually going to be the best selection here, as we saw Russell Gage and Tyrone Williams off the clock. Now, Nelson Aguilar as well. And there goes Darnell Mooney. So, nonetheless, I mean, we could also consider another quarterback here, like drafting Tua, right? Or like drafting Trevor Lawrence, excuse me, who's sitting down there as well. But let's take a chance on Ramondre Stevenson and add another running back to this roster. I think that Ramondre Stevenson gives us a lot of good value. And yeah, we have the Ravens, Washington football team's defense, the 49ers defense, the Rams defense, all sitting here, including the Colts and the Pats. So let's roll with the Rams. And then, yeah, I'm not going to make you guys anticipate me drafting a kicker here. We will go ahead. Let's try and hop on to NFL Fantasy and see if we cannot get into an 8-man mock draft to go ahead and end this live stream overall, which like I said, had some technical issues getting onto this one. There's our guy Adam Rank, right? So I started a little bit later than I would like to, and let's see if I can't sign in and do a mock draft here. Looks like my computer has me signed out of everything, but no worries whatsoever. Let's go ahead and get this rolling. Blah, blah, blah. I will say, man, with the NFL's at least their fantasy site and like their mock draft platform, uh, everything just moves so much slower. I don't know. I really don't like doing drafts or mock drafts through their website, but nonetheless, I've got one coming up on Wednesday. So let's see if we can't find a 8-team mock draft to hop into here. There's one. Standard scoring format, which is fine. Some of the rankings might be a little bit different based off of that. And yeah, man, this site just moves so slow. But that's okay. We will survive. So let me know in the live chat down below if you guys, what site you guys, or what platform you guys do your drafts through. Is it like the Sleeper app? Is it Yahoo? Is it ESPN? Is it NFL? And let me know what is your favorite over the years if you've done it through different platforms. I personally really like Yahoo overall. I feel like everything runs really smooth through Yahoo. And as we can see, I mean, the NFL site is giving me issues like usual. Let's just hop over to Yahoo and see if we can't get into a quick mock draft here. Yeah, that NFL site, I swear, it never ends up working for me, man. So, nonetheless, let's see. That's not what I want. We'll get there, I promise. Let's see if it's not. Look at the way I usually type this in into Google. Anyways, let's hop into our final mock draft of the night. Let's go ahead and just join the next available 8-man mock draft, if it'll let us. There we go. All right, so this should work. It looks like it's PPR scoring format if I'm seeing everything correctly. We've got the 6 overall selection, and it's an 8-man draft. So back on pace. If you guys are still in here, go ahead and smash that like button. Give me any fantasy questions, any fantasy concerns you guys have had over the past day or so, as this will probably be the last mock draft of the night. And like I said, let me know if you guys already drafted what you thought your worst overall pick was and what you thought your best overall pick was. And go ahead and smash that like button as well, as we have got 30 seconds until we kick this one off. And then, of course, it'll put us into the waiting room. We'll probably have another minute or so to go after that. All right, so now we've got about 2.5 minutes. Man, in an 8-man draft, an 8-man mock draft, it's so hard for me not to just go completely running back heavy overall. There's just so many good running backs who become available. But uh, I think if anything in an 8-man draft, you have more flexibility to really target different positions and still come out of the draft with a lot of good running backs, right? And some really good wide receivers as well as some pretty good tight ends. So I don't know, man. I really haven't fully gotten my 8-man mock draft strategy down. Uh, but nonetheless, I do feel pretty good overall about where you can get certain guys and all of that as well. But it's really difficult for me to do these 8-man mock drafts and not just go super RB heavy. But we'll see what happens here as we have about a minute and a half left. Uh, Last time I'll ask kindly that you guys hit that like button, as it really does help get these live streams, to different audiences and whatnot. And like I said, tomorrow I should be hopefully live streaming my 20-man draft, my actual draft, which is what I plan on doing, right? I feel like I need to do like 100 more 20-man mock drafts, but before tomorrow night. But the last couple 20-man mock drafts I did, I felt very good about overall, and I think that I've got my strategy down for the most part, right? I don't know, man. 20-man drafts, so especially in this league, this is a very, very competitive league, and people really know their stuff and really plan for it. There's a bit of money on the line, so I never know what to expect, but I should have that live streaming tomorrow, so make sure you guys tune in for that as well. Should be starting between like 4:30 and 5, so definitely going to be exciting to watch me either be very happy with my 20-man team or very unhappy. We'll see what happens at the end of the night tomorrow. So, like I asked, in kind fashion, go ahead and hit that like button because it does help others see this stream potentially tonight who can then see my 20-man draft tomorrow as well. But nonetheless, it looks like we're about to kick off here. So I would anticipate at that 6 overall selection, we should be able to get like a Nick Chubb or an Aaron Jones. I don't see any reason. Well, I guess take that back. I mean, they could certainly be drafted before pick 6, but if they are, then I do think we can still go out and get pretty valuable player like an Ezekiel Elliott if he slipped for some reason, or Derrick Henry if he slipped for some reason. So nonetheless, I mean, there's really no other way to do it than take a top running back with that 6 overall selection. So we'll go ahead and see how it plays out here. and I think that we know we're going to get a pretty good value overall as Derrick Henry is taken off the board, as well as Christian McCaffrey and Dalvin Cook. So really not a whole lot to see there. And there goes Kamara. I mean, this is all pretty typical overall. So, I mean, like I said, Zeke might slide out here if someone has higher conviction in Nick Chubb or Aaron Jones, but let's go ahead and pick up that of Nick Chubb. And then I think I'm going to play around in this mock draft because, like I said, I'm so used to going so RB heavy. I think we're going to play around and kind of bounce between the running back and the receiver position and try and also go out and get a pretty good pretty elite quarterback early on, just to kind of switch things up for the night as we feel pretty confident that Nick Chubb can lead this backfield for us, or running back spot on the roster for us, right? And being that this is an 8-man league, we should be able to turn around and still get some pretty valuable running backs later on. But man, I was really wanting to get Stephon Diggs there, who has been selected. So yeah, let's just play around. Let's take Travis Kelce. You know what? Let's just take the best talent available. So let me know in the live chat if there are any players throughout this mock draft that you think are just top talent that we cannot pass on, man. And this is something I'm kind of considering going into the regular season, is having some of you guys, our subscribers and viewers, kind of help me make selections. I might join a third league actually and have maybe do like a live stream where you guys help influence my selections, and then throughout the season help influence my waiver wire selections, and then maybe even break it down to where if I get enough likes on a video or something, I'll go out and start a really bad quarterback or just something stupid like that. So nonetheless, make sure you guys are keeping up with the channel, and we might have some opportunities like that throughout the season as well. So let's just keep on anticipating this 22nd selection as we started this mock draft with Nick Chubb and Travis Kelce. So I don't think Najee Harris will fall to us at pick 22, but that would certainly be a really interesting selection here. Patrick Mahomes is still on the board, who is someone we could go out and target. Joe Mixon is sitting here, who would be a really nice running back to add to this team. We still don't have a wide receiver one on this roster, as we went out and took Travis Kelce pretty early on. But man, I don't know if I can pass up pairing Patty Mahomes if he's available. I mean, he might fall to us with the 27th overall selection, right? If Najee Harris falls to us at pick 22, then that's definitely the guy who we want, who just got selected. I don't mind whatsoever taking Joe Mixon here, right? But I think that David Montgomery and James Robinson should be available at pick 27. So let's go ahead and take the best quarterback in the league, and that of Patty Mahomes. Pair him with Travis Kelce, right? In an 8-man league, you need that absolute value week in and week out. In an 8-man league, I would definitely consider taking both of those guys, as we see A.J. Brown and Joe Mixon off the board. So now we will kind of anticipate either drafting a true wide receiver one, like an Allen Robinson or Keenan Allen, or even our guy Scary Terry McLaurin. Or we will go ahead and just select David Montgomery, who I think is probably going to be what we need to do, as we were looking pretty weak at the running back position. Not, a knock on Nick Chubb whatsoever, but we only have one running back on this team, So we'll go ahead and add David Montgomery there, and then we will go ahead and anticipate definitely taking a wide receiver at that 38th overall selection, but we still want to turn around in the 6th round and get another running back, right? I mean, you guys know that I draft very RB heavy, and I said that I didn't want to go RB heavy here, but nonetheless, we need a wide receiver one on this team. I think we're going to have a lot of opportunities to draft a lot of receivers that we're very confident in, so I don't feel scared by any means about any potential wide receivers not falling to us. I think we're going to be able to load up at the position, right? But If James Robinson falls to us at pick 38, then you guys know that we're taking James Robinson, but I truly don't see it happening. I just don't think there's any way that happens. Not as high on like a Gus Edwards or Miles Sanders. I would rather go with a wide receiver as James Robinson is selected there, and then turn around with that 43rd overall selection and maybe target like a Josh Jacobs. And if he's not available, then go with another receiver. So at this point in time, Chris Godwin is definitely my top target, but we do have some guys like Robert Woods and Tyler Lockett hanging down there, DJ Moore, who I also wouldn't mind getting here, but nonetheless, I definitely think Chris Godwin's the best available wide receiver at the moment as Kyler Murray is taken, and I won't be surprised whatsoever if Chris Godwin goes here. If he does, then I'll go ahead and snag Robert Woods as yeah, there goes Chris Godwin, right? So we will go ahead and add Robert Woods to the squad, and then it might make the most sense to turn around and get another receiver here like a DJ Moore or like a Julio Jones, but we could just stick with going ahead and selecting that of Josh Jacobs, who would give us some more depth at the running back position, right? But I think that we should have some good opportunity to also load up on some of those handcuff situations at the running back position, and I'm pretty confident that Nick Chubb and David Montgomery can kind of lead this squad for most of the season as well. But I think that DJ Moore or Josh Jacobs is probably the best selection here. So let's just go ahead and anticipate. Really don't think we're going to get a bad selection overall. This is always the worst part, just waiting like 5 seconds when we know it's so hard to map out. Okay, so there goes Gus Edwards. Yeah, I don't think any of these players give us bad value, right? Whether it's DJ Moore, Brandon Ayuk, or Julio Jones at the receiver position. But let's go ahead and snag Josh Jacobs as we do want another running back on this squad, right? And now we feel pretty good as we have what I would say are 3 starting running backs, right, who rushed for over 1,000 rushing yards and at least 8 touchdowns, respectively, last year, right? We've got an absolute stud at the tight end position and an absolute stud at the quarterback position. And then we also have Robert Woods to lead our receiver room. The reason I passed on taking one of these receivers, right, is there's potential that one of them falls to us at pick 54 as people are starting to take some more quarterbacks and take some more tight ends in this draft, and that gives us a little bit of cushion overall, right? And then, we could possibly revert back to one of those guys. And I just don't think the value at running back and that of Josh Jacobs would have fell to us at pick 54. So, nonetheless, really our top targets moving in to the end of round 7 here and round 8 are going to be that of Daryl Henderson, as well as any of these receivers at the top tier, but then even this next tier of like Jerry Jeudy and Robbie Anderson, I'm not going to be afraid to go out and get my guy Jerry Jeudy, right? But then also we've got like Deontay Johnson and T. Higgins sitting here, so a lot of good value overall at the receiver position. We're kind of fortunate that it looks like a lot of people in this mock draft are going out and getting their quarterbacks and getting their tight ends, right? So, nonetheless, I think we're going to end up with 2 very good players, 2 very valuable players. But I'd like to get one of those 3 receivers sitting up there, DJ Moore, Julio Jones, or Adam Thielen. I feel the best about DJ Moore overall, and then turn around and get Daryl Henderson and get another running back on this squad, as I think there's going to be a lot more receivers available in later rounds. But I don't feel bad about any of these players. There goes DJ Moore. So now I would say that Julio is our top target, and then hopefully turn around and grab Daryl Henderson. If he's not available, then we'll go with one of those receivers. So it is our turn to draft. Let's go ahead and take Julio Jones, right? And then we will move into the 8th round and potentially and hopefully get that of Daryl Henderson, and really start this bench off on a strong note at the running back position, as we only have 3 RBs on this team. Obviously, our weakest part of this roster is the wide receiver position, but we're going to be able to turn around here in the ninth round and forward and really add a lot of good depth at the receiver position and still potentially go out and get a guy like Robert Jones the second, excuse me, and still get another good running back towards the end of this draft. So at this point in time, my top target is my guy in that of Jerry Jeudy, but I wouldn't mind somehow getting Diontae Johnson to fall to us or getting Robbie Anderson based on his strength of schedule, right? Javonte Williams sitting here, someone who we've taken in a mock draft already tonight, who I really like. And honestly, as good as Travis Kelce is going to be for, this theoretic team all year long, I wouldn't mind adding another tight end as well. So we've got Devonta Smith down here and Corey Davis, right? A lot of good receivers available in these later rounds. Chenault Jr. is a guy that we really like at the moment. Didn't mean to tag Matt Ryan, but or Irv Smith Jr., who's out for the season. But nonetheless, we can come back to this. We don't really need to queue up a lot of players as this is an 8-man draft and is going to move a lot quicker overall. So we will just kind of sit back and cross our fingers as we have 5 more selections until we pick. I mean, I wouldn't mind going out and getting both Jerry Jeudy and that of Javonte Williams here, but I do think realistically we need to try and add 2 receivers with these next 2 selections, as there's a lot of good value sitting here. But nonetheless, I mean, Diontae Johnson or Jerry Jeudy is really going to help out this team, and we might even have the potential to get if we don't get Diontae Johnson, let's see, Juju Smith-Schuster sitting down there, and Chase Claypool. That's who I was looking for, was Chase Claypool. So if we can go out and get Jerry Jeudy and Chase Claypool, I think that gives this roster a lot of good value overall, being that we definitely need some receivers on this team, right? So I don't have a problem with Jerry Jeudy or Chase Claypool whatsoever, but you guys know that Jerry Jeudy's been my guy all off season / preseason. So let's go ahead and add him. And then let's hope that we do get Chase Claypool to fall to us here, as we definitely need another receiver on this squad. I mean, I don't mind having Robert Woods and Julio Jones, especially being that when we look at the quarterback and tight end position, we have tremendous value. And then when we're looking at the running back position, we've got 4 really solid running backs, in my opinion, on this roster. But I would like to add, a couple more running backs to this team as well. So let's go ahead and add Chase Claypool. I wouldn't mind getting Robbie Anderson there based on his strength of schedule, right? But I think that Chase Claypool is going to give us that big play potential, be a really good flex player to help complement what Robert Woods and Julio Jones and Jerry Jeudy can give us week in and week out on a consistent basis. So nonetheless, we've got a couple more players to go ahead and snag up here. Just want to make sure I've drafted on. Yeah, so we do have 3 more spots. I just want to make sure, because ESPN kind of gives you that extra spot to draft with. But let's go ahead and just keep our eyes on the prize, man. Javonte Williams off the board. I think that Ronald Jones is probably my next top target, just kind of solidifying that last running back, in my opinion, who could give us RB1 value, right? And after that, I think Antonio Brown and Robert Tonyan are probably the best available players. And I think that pairing a guy like Robert Tonyan with Travis Kelce would really give this roster some really good value. And there goes Melvin Gordon, the third, off the board as well. So let's go ahead and hone in here. We've got 4 more selections. I mean, I wouldn't mind adding another quarterback to this team as well, but I think that would probably make a lot more sense in a later round, especially since we paid such a heavy price for that of Patrick Mahomes in this draft. I mean, not as heavy as we could have, right? I mean, we still went out and we got Nick Chubb and Travis Kelce in front of him. And there goes Ronald Jones off the board. So I don't think that there's really any running backs left that I feel good about, right? But that's okay because I mean, I like Naheem Hines, don't get me wrong, right? But there's really no one at this point in this draft selection that I'd want to go out and get here. So Antonio Brown sitting here, let's go ahead and add him and give us a little bit more depth at the wide receiver position as we truly need it. And then let's see if we can't turn around and grab Robert Tonyan and get another really good value for this roster, right? And pair him with that of Travis Kelce, which is going to be absolutely lethal. And a lot of leagues now let you have an extra flex position that includes a tight end. And man, that makes me want to draft another tight end more than anything. And it's something that I traditionally have done over the years is targeted two tight ends, although it's usually towards the end of the draft, right? But I don't have a problem whatsoever moving into week one with two tight ends on my roster overall. So it's our turn to draft, and like we've been talking about, let's add Robert Tonyan, man, which gives us some really good value at the tight end position, pairing him with that of Travis Kelce. And now moving into our final selection of the night. I mean, we could add another quarterback to the squad. I mean, Jalen Hurts is still sitting here. Matthew Stafford's still available. Some good kind of sleeper guys like a Tua hanging down there, Jameis Winston. And then we've also got all those rookies available, Trevor Lawrence, and so on and so forth, as there's a lot of good potential rookies to break out. And if you've got Patrick Mahomes as your starting quarterback, what better pairing can you have than Patrick Mahomes with one of those rookie quarterbacks, right? If you're not fully confident in a Trey Lance or a Justin Fields or, one of those guys, a Mac Jones, Zach Wilson, really, whomever it may be, even Trevor Lawrence, right? If you have that confidence in your QB1 and Patrick Mahomes, then certainly, definitely a good pairing, to say the least. Definitely give you more confidence overall. So sitting here, knowing that we're going to be targeting a wide receiver, I like all these guys a lot. Devonta Smith, Corey Davis, Chenault Jr. I'd throw Mike Williams in that mix and then Marquez Callaway as well. I'll probably go ahead and take Corey Davis if he's available here, right? But let's check the defenses at this point in time. Okay, no one that really jumps out. I was just going to say, if there's a top defense, then being that there's so many receivers that, in my opinion, kind of present similar value, right? I mean, Michael Pittman's here, right? All those Jacksonville Jaguars wide receivers are here. Jacoby Myers is here. So being that there's so many receivers to pick from, I wouldn't mind going and reaching for a defense like Baltimore's defense just got selected. They would have been worthy of reaching for, but after they got selected, there's really no one left, right? So let's go ahead and take Corey Davis, and then let's see. We'll probably just going to have to go ahead and take a defense and a kicker, and that will really top off the night and top off this mock draft. Really my first live stream I've ever done, so I do apologize. Definitely some technical difficulties coming into the night. Got started way later than I thought to, which unfortunately is going to make me stop a little bit earlier than intended. But nonetheless, I definitely had a blast doing this, and I hope that it goes smoother throughout the rest of, I guess, the off season, as I'm going to be doing, any of my actual drafts I'm going to be live streaming. So hope that it goes a lot smoother. I really appreciate anyone who joined us tonight, anyone who was active in the live chat. I definitely had fun answering those questions for you guys. And definitely appreciate all of the Catch fam and all of our subscribers. So let's go ahead and pick the Colts defense, and then we will just let this wind down and see what kicker we end up with. But first of all, let's go ahead and go over the roster, man. We've got the best to do it in the league at the quarterback position, Patty Mahomes, the best to do it in the league at the tight end position, and that of Travis Kelce. Went pretty wide receiver light, but you guys are pretty used to that. So we've got Robert Woods, Julio Jones, Jerry Jeudy, Chase Claypool, Antonio Brown, and Corey Davis. So I'm still very happy with those wide receivers. And I didn't even mention that we also got Robert Tonyan at the tight end position. So overall, at receiver, tight end, and quarterback, I'm super happy. At the running back position, we've got Nick Chubb, David Montgomery, Josh Jacobs, and Daryl Henderson. So only 4 running backs on this team. Pretty confident that all of those guys can still step up and be RB1s, but a lot of people have question marks around that of Daryl Henderson and that of Josh Jacobs, and even to some degree that of David Montgomery. And honestly, some people out there still not sold on Nick Chubb due to those injuries and everything. But I'm confident in those 4 guys. So overall, I feel very good about this roster. We really have no qualms with it whatsoever. We kind of don't have as many flashy players at the receiver and running back position because we paid the price of going out and getting Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce early. But I'm telling you, man, I don't think you'll regret it if you go out and get those guys, right? So looking at the kicker position here, Jason Sanders and Rodrigo Blankenship are definitely the top guys I would look at. Greg Zuerlein's not a bad option, as well as Daniel Carlson, but I ain't passing up Jason Sanders, who put up 172 fantasy points last year, and I really, really just like Rodrigo Blankenship. I think is why I go out and get him more often than not. So nonetheless, let's pick up that of Jason Sanders. And with that, I will say thank you guys once more so much for watching and or listening tonight. I had a lot of fun. I know came into with some technical difficulties. Sorry to anyone who may have been waiting or anticipating this starting earlier, but this is how we get down to it and we get through it, right? We just got to go out and try these things. So nonetheless, I had a blast tonight conducting those mock drafts and doing that sort of Q&A. I hope that you guys continue to tune in for these live streams. So as always, man, go ahead and smash that like button, even if you weren't here for the live portion of it. If you go back and hit that like button, still helps us. And if you're new here, man, we are on the road to 100 subscribers here at the Catch. Go ahead and hit that sub button. That helps out the channel more than anything. And go check out some of our other videos, some of our other pre-recorded mock drafts. Drop some comments, hit the like button on those as well. And shout out to all of the Catch fam, man. This last month or so has been such a journey, such a fun time. I truly, truly appreciate all of your guys' support more than you know, and so does my co-host Steven, man. Your guys' support means the world to us. So with that, I will say, remember, you saw it here on the Catch, and I will end